It's remarkable, is it not, in a rights-based environment that we all live, and every single person, it doesn't matter what you do and what part of the industry you're in, sitting here today, actually demands rights, obligations, rights and responsibilities. It's also remarkable that in 2013, if you had typed those 4 words, human rights at sea, into the internet, any of the top 10 search engines, there was no platform. I'm not talking about the Maritime Labour Convention, I'm not talking about labour rights, because labour rights are a subset of the bigger human rights umbrella. But it is remarkable when we have child rights, women's rights, animal rights. We did not have human rights at sea in 2013. I'm going to cover off just a small area of what we do, and in the 4 pillars of the work that we do, which includes seafarers, fishermen, migrants, refugees, and business and human rights, those 4 pillars. We're going to concentrate on abandonment. I'm going to talk about specifically Indian abandonment. But firstly, let's put this in context. If you weren't aware of that, you should be. Everybody quotes to me, and I'm non-practicing counsel, but everybody quotes to me the law of the Sea Convention. Human rights do not appear in that once. You can port it in through Article 311, which allows other conventions to be taken into account. But even the MLC and the MLC's supporting documentation does not use the words human rights. I think that is appalling. I say it publicly, and I know a lot of people cringe. But why not? Why should any one of you here today be deprived of your liberty, deprived of family life, deprived of your right to education, be brought into arbitrary detention, be tortured? Now, am I making this up? I'm going to bring it very close to home. In the last 96 hours, one of my staff was detained in another country. She was tortured. She is in a bad way because she was researching facts to put in publications to give to people like yourselves for your awareness of human rights at sea. So for me, it's very personal, it's very close to home. When we look at the law, in 2014, the International Maritime Law Institute, where I will be lecturing next week in Malta, has a book, their Volume 1 book, in terms of international maritime law and human rights, has a few pages. And there's a couple of points I just want to draw out in the limited time that I've got. But what you have is you have international human rights law, which is well established from the 1948 Declaration, which all of you in this room enjoy the protections of. And it sits parallel to law of the sea. What we are as an organisation, and we're not a welfare organisation, we fully support the likes of Sandra's work and all the other welfare organisations. We're an enabling organisation that develops the narrative and develops, we hope, legislation. But this is the legal position. And in 2014, a year after we conceived the organisation, academically, they were still having a discussion about whether or not human rights apply at sea. Before I get on to India specifically, does anybody here know how human rights at sea as a platform and a narrative started? Well, in 2013, when I was practicing, I was asked by a client what the landscape was for the future of human rights in the maritime space. I walked out of that office and I picked up my phone. It's the only time I'll encourage you to pick your phones up now. Type 4 words into your Google, whatever. And when we did that in 2013, there was nothing. So today, where we are today, is looking at issues, particularly in India. And why am I picking India? On the 28th of February, I was in Mumbai. And I was invited to a seminar. Now, what is remarkable about this picture is that 6 months ago, a year ago, you would have never seen this in a founding state of the IMO. But at that seminar, dedicated to human rights at sea, with the DG Shipping and the Minister of External Affairs and the Ministry of External Affairs there, that room was packed full of the entire supply chain of shipping, all talking about one thing. Not labour rights, but the bigger picture of human rights at sea. And that in itself is remarkable, is it not? Because factually, if you look at 2013, when this didn't even exist, to today, and having a superpower in the world now recognising it, and I know that it's gone into the government to be considered as part of future National Maritime Strategy, that's where our organisation is, and I'm very proud of my team that's put it together in the last 5 years. Abandonment. I'm not going to go into abandonment in the detail of the law because we all know what it is, or we should do. But as an organisation, human rights at sea should not exist, period. People come to us when all other avenues have failed. We kind of pick up the last cases. And when we hear about a case, what we do is we offload it to the welfare organisations to say, hey, are you aware of this? Or we have it put on the IMO database. But as you're probably aware, in the current public domain, the 31 seafarers off the coast of the UAE, and on the 27th of February, I was in with the Federal Transport Authority in UAE talking about this, with seafarers who have been abandoned, one up to 33 months, but are at the moment between 18 and 25 months on that vessel. That should not be happening today. With the amount of money that is in the shipping industry as a whole sum, a tiny amount should be put aside to deal with paying seafarers' wages, because without them, people in this room do not have a job. I will slightly disagree with Sandra about not demanding rights. I say they should be demanding their rights. I'm not a union affiliate, but we go further to say that these are your rights, and they're inalienable. They can't be taken away from you. They're fundamental. What we do is we create documents. We take witness testimony, all available on our website. We could completely give everything away, all of our IP, all of our work, so that people like yourselves can come to our site, look at our news feed, look at our publications and case studies, and take objective examples that have been well worked through. But what we have found is that the effect of us being able to put a case study, of which the case study on the right-hand side there, which is about the Halani case down in Namibia, where the seafarers have been allowed to have their wages paid, but the port authorities will not let them go. That case study was held by ministers at state level in India and read. So we are able to have effect to inform you in a balanced way. I want to introduce in my last 4 minutes, 30 seconds, the second abandonment. Has anybody heard of this? Second abandonment is a trend that we've identified, and it's not just the abandonment of the seafarer, but it's the ripple effects that go out for the immediate and extended family. And what we are seeing when we have been on the ground, in this case in India, is the deprivation suffered not just by the immediate family where they had to take out loans, but those loans have been brought in and they've lost houses, land that's been in their family for generations. And what we're seeing is indentured servitude, medieval stuff happening today. And what we find is when we go to these communities, and let's go back one, when we go to these communities and we speak to them, not only these people have no money, I mean no money, but their extended family who help them also lose their assets. They lose their homes. They use up their savings. And therefore the second abandonment is the abandonment where the immediate family is abandoned by the wider family out of necessity for survival. So let me draw it back to commercial shipping. When seafarers on a vessel are not paid $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, whatever, $6,000 because they've been abandoned, the effect is not just that $6,000 in the pocket or taken from the profit of the industry. It is the so what of what you're doing to families, and we meet them. I don't have time to go into the deep, dark stuff that we have to deal with, but I just would like you to take away that this is happening, and this second abandonment is a vicious cycle that you, in your areas with awareness, could simply stop by raising the question, do we have enough money to pay that first lien to the crew? As I wrap up here, I'm going to come to some recommendations. If you don't take anything away from me or anything that we've said in these 12 minutes, my first recommendation is to embrace and be explicit about those 4 words. I don't mind how you use them, but I'd like to see them in your policies. I'd like to be able to go on your websites for ship owners, for insurers, and see your human rights policy and see your human rights at sea policy, because it's very thin on the ground at the moment. I would like you to consider supporting and adopting the founding principle that human rights apply at sea, as equally as they do on land. Because just because you get on a vessel, leave Piraeus, go out past Jebel Akta and Jebel Tariq and go out into the Atlantic, doesn't mean that those seafarers on those vessels lose all rights, all human rights. Up to this point, they do, in many respects. If nobody's heard about the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, this is soft law, but it really is a good starting point. And we speak a lot to businesses, to owners, and at board level. It's about the protect, respect, and remedy framework and having effective remedy and showing that you are actually doing something about this in your companies and organisations. And finally, this is an issue of leadership. As I said earlier, human rights at sea should not exist, because actually every single person in this room, to a greater or lesser extent, should be showing leadership and driving forward the application of human rights in the maritime environment and your supply chain. When I talk about human rights, most people go like this. But when I talk about brand, when I talk about your shares, your share value, and your reputation, let me just leave you with this. We can put out as an organisation, as we do, a publication or a case study which names the registry, the owner, the insurers, and everybody involved in that flag state for abuse. I can guarantee that's going to get attention in your boardrooms quicker than a legal letter coming a couple of weeks down the line. And when we issue a publication, I can have it around the world in 20 minutes. I'm not using that as any kind of threat. I am just saying what we do. And actually, we shouldn't have to do that because you're addressing the issues. Finally, everybody loves a solution. There's all that, I know you can't read it, but you can download this document free. It's at board level, and it says what your board should be doing and looking at. Should charge quite a lot of money for that, but we don't. We give it away. And on the 00, that's me. Thank you very much for your attention.